Hi, I'm Christal Crockett, the owner of the Kreatives. I'm a Kingdom creative, and this is my story. Who am I? I am Christal Crockett. I am a wife, a daughter, a mom, sister, but I'm also a business owner. I own the Kreatives and a web design company, as well as ministry. What started my journey was dance ministry. I actually started dancing when I was about 5. No, hold on. How old was I? I was in the second grade. That's 7 years old. So I was about 7 years old when I started dancing. I was dancing inside of the church, and then I grew and became more involved in the youth ministry, where I became a part of the choir, even though I can't sing. Became a part of the choir and just really getting involved in the church. But I realized I had a knack for creative things because I would write stories, I would write poems, but I would never share them with people. And so eventually, when I got to middle school, I realized that I had a gift for writing because my teacher would call it out. And I was still dancing in the church. I was praise dancing. And eventually I became over a dance ministry at a particular church that I was at. And I was leading those dancers, and I started growing my skill set as an entrepreneur. Didn't realize it at the time, but I was learning how to work in admin. I was learning how to balance budgets. So God really grew my skills as an entrepreneur through ministry from an early age. Yeah, so actually what led me to pursuing entrepreneurship was in the 10th grade. I took a webmastering class. I learned how to code a website, and my teacher was telling me that I should pursue web design. And at the time, I didn't understand the significance of it, even though we were using MySpace to code at the time. So technically, we all were doing coding in high school, if you are a millennial, technically. But I didn't pursue it. And so I ended up going into teaching, and I hated it. I love the kids, but I did not love teaching them. I'm pretty sure a few teachers can relate to this. You get into the classroom and there's nothing like what they taught us in school. You know, you get the textbook version in the classroom, and once you get to the school, the kids are crazy. I literally had kids that were talking to themselves in class. I'm gonna tell you, looking back now, I'm like, okay, I was probably going through deliverance training in the classroom as a teacher, because I had students that literally had schizophrenia, I had students that had ADHD, I had students that had anger problems, and they were all in the same class. And this is not a special ed classroom, this is a general ed classroom. And so I would sit here like, God, am I being punked? Because why do I always get the kids that have all the problems? And so I began to pray for my students. I would pray over the seats. I would pray for myself. I would spend some of my lunch breaks crying and in tears because I just didn't understand why I had to go through that. But looking back now, I realized that season of my life was training grounds for deliverance. I couldn't go out here and deliver people in the church, but I was helping to deliver and set free students in the classroom from the bondage that they were in. And so in 2020, when the pandemic happened, I was pregnant, and I was working as an instructional data specialist with a school district in Houston. And so I was no longer in the classroom, I was supporting teachers. But I realized I didn't want to go back to the classroom. I wanted to be home with my son. And so I came home and I started working for a nonprofit, just part-time, so I could continue to just bring some streams of income in. And that's when I launched the prayer journal. That's when I started to release devotionals. That's where I started to really get into content creation, just find my love for creative things again. And so I realized then I didn't want to necessarily be an influencer, but I did enjoy creating content. I did enjoy helping people through just lifestyle tips for Christians. And so in 2022, I started working for an education publishing company, and they eventually laid me off because they had budget restrictions. And so I'm like, God, you led me to this job and now you laid me off. And so I applied for jobs all of 2023. And I would get interviews at some of the top tech companies, and they were like, oh, you were great, but we're gonna go a different direction. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, if you're sending me to these great interviews, you're showing me that I'm gonna get a job, well, why can't I find one? And eventually in June of last year, I was at a conference for entrepreneurs about streams of income, and a young lady asked a question about book publishing, and the guy that was answering, he couldn't answer the question, but I could. And I realized at that moment, I have something that people need that he can't even give her, and we're paying him to give us the answers. And so it was in that moment God was like, you need to birth a publishing company. So that day I went to my hotel room and I started planning a publishing company, and the rest has been history. I even launched the web design company in August of that year because I realized that people are trusting me at my church to build websites, so why can't I do it for other people? And so I started to do it then for other people, and now we're in 2024, and I have seen business take off quicker than I expected it to. And to top it off, I got an internship in January 3rd of this year. I was asked to do an marketing intern for a company, and her requirements for the internship was you have to be a mom, well not a mom, but you have to be a stay-at-home mom, can't have a full-time job, and they want you to have your own business. And it was at that moment I realized, God, you set me up for this internship. You made sure I would not have a full-time job. You made sure I was at home with my kids every day so that I could have this marketing internship, because this marketing internship opens up more avenues of skills for me to grow, for me to have for my business. So it's been a wonderful journey. It's been scary. It's been hard. There are days I still want to give up, but I realize that if I give up on my assignment, and I can't do that because people are waiting on my business to birth their book. People are waiting on my business to birth their business, and so it would be selfish of me to give up because it's hard today, just because I don't feel like doing it. So my creative process with web design is really just to get into the mind of my clients. So I ask them, what are their colors, what are their fonts, what do they envision their website looking like, and then I create a mood board, and I begin to just mess around with different pictures, different fonts, different colors, and I send it to them, and we go back and forth until we find their flow. And so I use Pinterest, I use videos off of Instagram. I will just find inspiration in anything. I'll even tell them to send me websites that they love and hate. So it could be as simple as they send me a Nike website and they send me HEB website, and I'll find out what they love and what they do not like about those websites, and I'll let it marinate onto theirs. If that's a big word, marinate. What I love about web design is having the creative freedom to create. Most of my clients tell me I can just have fun, and so it allows me to unlock new creativity, to do something new, to have fun with interactions and animations, and so it just lets me relax. Being a mom and a wife, that's my how I relax, and that's how I just unwind at the end of the day, by creating for other people. Some game-changing wisdom that was shared with me was actually from a podcast called Social Proof, and it was very simple. It was basically, what is your only? What is that one thing that makes you different? Because there can be 1,000 book publishers, there can be 1,000,000 web designers, but what makes you different? Why should someone book you? And once I narrowed down on my why and my only, that's what began to really set me apart, and that's when I saw the influx in clients booking me. So how I balance ministry and business is very interesting. I'm realizing now they do intertwine. So at first I saw them separate entities. I was like, okay, I'm going to do web design over here and book publishing over here, and then ministries here. But eventually I would have client calls, and I would end up prophesying to my clients. We would end up on the phone praying and evangelizing to each other. And so I began to say, this is how my business is set apart. This is how my business is different. So I'm not just a business owner, I'm a kingdom business entrepreneur. And so when my clients book me, they also book someone that's going to see prophetically into their business, to help their business grow, to help their book reach a different market. But they also get to elevate their brand. Some life-changing wisdom shared with me regarding ministry was to stay neutral. It was very simple, again, but staying neutral keeps me out of the drama. It keeps me out of being on one side but staying on God's side. So I try to keep my head focused on the assignment and let everything else play out on its own. So I am the author of 2 books. I have a prayer journal, and I have a book for entrepreneurs to plan in their business by co-authoring with God. And so my passion behind publishing started with me not knowing how to do it. I couldn't find help. If I did find help, they charged thousands of dollars. And so I vowed to God then that I would help his people at a reasonable price, if not for free, whenever I can. And so now I'm at a place where I can give my expertise, my experience, and help others birth their visions at a fraction of the price that many of these other book coaches are doing. So my journey I'll start with wifehood, I guess. Actually started before I met my husband. So I was in a relationship that I shouldn't have been in. And God told me to cut that off. Not being spiritual, but it was real. He told me to cut it off, and I said, well, Lord, I don't know how, so can you do it? And so when the guy broke up with me, I was like, thank you. And afterwards, God began to work on me and was like, you're going to get married by this age. And I'm like, but there's nobody around. I'm just focused on you, God. It's me and you till the wheels fall off. That's how I felt. And so when I did meet my husband about 3 months after God told me that in my quiet time, I didn't know he was my husband at the time, but of course we ended up realizing that we were called to each other for marriage. And so that journey was beautiful because I began to see how God had to raise my standards in the relationship that wasn't called for me, and so that I could be ready for the person that he did assign to be my husband. And so once we got married, we really didn't have the intentions to have kids early, but in 2019 we got pregnant, and so we ended up losing that baby. And so afterwards, the desire to become a mom really I guess got heavier on me. I just really wanted to become a mom, and so I ended up getting pregnant later that year. And when my son came, it was like this biggest transformation. Everything in me just began to shift. I wanted to do better for him. I didn't want to stay a teacher because it was safe or because it was an easy thing for me to do every day. I wanted to go into entrepreneurship because I realized if I can go build a business while having a child, I'm showing my son that he can be resilient, he can do whatever he's called to do, but also I'm building a business that's going to create legacy for him and his kids in the future. And so now that I'm here with 2 boys and a husband, I'm realizing that God has really blessed me to be able to manage so much with grace. And it really is a grace on it because everybody can't handle it. So everybody's not called to business ownership, but if you are, you can still have a family, you can still have ministry, you can still have a business and manage it all flawlessly. So how I met my husband, I actually saw him, we actually saw each other before we knew each other, because I was actually in another relationship when I saw him, but I was in another relationship, so I didn't have any interest, but I was like, oh, okay. And so he saw me and he was interested, but he didn't know I was in a relationship. And so I was dancing at an event that his friends were dancing at. I actually did the same song as them. It was interesting. So it was like, he was like, who is this girl? And I'm just like, why would they have both of us do the same song at the same event? But yeah, that's how we met. And so, well, that's how we saw each other. And then we ended up meeting because I was asked to dance at a wedding and I needed someone to mod with me. And so I asked a friend of mine at the time if she could refer somebody to me. She referred 2 people. She referred a friend of hers, and then she referred my husband, which seemed to be a guy that she liked. And so in turn, me and well, you know, y'all know his name, Tavon, we ended up connecting to rehearse. He ended up liking me. I ended up liking him, and so she was history for both of us. And we we ended up continuing to talk, and here we are, 8 years later. What has my journey with grief been like? So in 2021, I lost my mom, and that was the hardest thing ever. I've lost close people to me before. I lost my grandmother and my godmother at a young age, and that was hard, but I learned how to grieve at that time. So when my mom passed, I thought I was grieving because I wasn't really crying. I was strong, but she even asked me to do her eulogy 2 months before she passed. I don't know if she knew she was passing, but for her to ask me these different things, I'm starting to think now, well, I pretty much made up in my mind she knew what was about to happen. And so when she passed, I don't think I cried the first few weeks. I cried a lot when she was in the hospital. It was very hard, and then I think maybe 2 months after her passing, I would find myself up at night just crying for hours and just crying out to God, asking him to help me. I found myself going into this depression, a functional depression, where I was smiling in everybody's faces, showing up to wherever I had to be at, but when I would be at home, I could barely do anything. I didn't want to cook. I didn't want to do anything but just lay and just exist. And so eventually God led me through deliverance. That's when he started to use my dreams. I would have these very vivid dreams and encounters. And I started to read books like Finger of God by Torah Solomon. And I started to take myself through self-deliverance. And that's when God just revealed to me all the generational curses that were in my family. And I realized even then that the way my mom grieved her mom was similar to the way I was grieving her. And so I knew then that was a door that depression tried to stay within our family, was through the grieving process. And so I refused to let depression and grief take me out and to stop me from producing, because for a year I didn't even make content on social media. I didn't sell a book. I didn't do anything. I just tried to go through the healing process of losing a parent. And so now being on the other side, I can really smile at that time, because yes, I miss my mom every day, but I realize now that her grieving process, her passing made me stronger. Her passing really helped me to step out bolder into my calling, into ministry, because even the ministry that I'm the ministry that I'm leading now, it was a ministry that she founded, that she created. And now I have the privilege to keep it going in a newer light. And so I just pay homage to her life and to what she taught me even in her passing. So my prayer journal got started after I had a miscarriage in 2019. I wanted to do a prayer night with some friends, and so we came together, and as I was preparing for them to come over, I created binders with prayer journal pages inside of it. And once I was creating, I realized that this is actually something that I could sell, and so I ended up having them sign NDAs to keep the idea basically a secret in between us. And once I started working on it, it was a struggle to produce it, because I could not find anyone that had done what I was trying to do. I knew I wanted it to be interactive, to have coloring pages, and just to have actual prayers inside of it. And I remember on one night I was on Clubhouse when it was popular, and one lady actually stopped and prophesied about the prayer journal, even though she didn't know me. And she told me exactly what that finishing touch was that I needed, which was me to put prayers that I actually prayed inside of it. And so for 30 days, I prayed in my secret place, and I wrote those prayers down, and I put those prayers inside of the journal. And so although the prayers are personal, they seem to be blessing other women, because I get testimonies of how the prayer journal is helping people, how the prayers in there have changed their prayer life. And so I'm grateful that God used the struggle of that time to produce purpose and to help bless other women. So my advice for ministers is to get out of your own head, to do what God has called you to do. Your voice is needed, and it's necessary. And even if you think your voice sounds like cornbread and collard greens, somebody is called to it. So be confident in the gift that God gave you. It does not matter if you feel like people are going to think you're arrogant. It's okay to know that God has gifted you. It's okay to know that your gifts are valuable, but also to move in excellence and humility in all of that. For entrepreneurs, I say to charge your price, but make it worth the price, and to do everything with professionalism and integrity. So if your price is going to be a high-ticket item, make sure that you're providing high quality and that you are responsive to your clients, because they won't mind paying the price. And for mothers, I say take it one day at a time. The kids may be crazy today, and they may be calm in the next moment, but relish in those moments, hug on them, take time to just dance and have fun with them. There are days where I don't do anything but just engage with my kids, and I enjoy those moments because I know I can't get these days back. So enjoy every moment that you have with them. So the wife, make time for your husband. Like, take time weekly to just go out on a date. It could be the smallest thing where you guys are going to walk around in Kroger's. If that's the time that you have for each other, take it and spend it together and get dressed up. Do not go walk around him with your hair button on your head. Get cute for your husband and keep the spice hot. You can connect with me on Instagram at the Christal Crockett, on Facebook at Christal Crockett, Or you can find me on my website at christalcrockett.com, where you can also purchase my books and devotionals. I have my publishing company officially launching in March, so I am taking book coaching clients as well as publishing clients. So if you don't want to do the work, you just want to pay me, come my way. If you are a woman looking for a community to hold you accountable and just be a supportive, safe place for you, you can find Women of God on Facebook. We have a Facebook community. It's just called Women of God. We also have a website, womenofgod.world. And then on Instagram, we are Women of God Co. And so you can connect with us there. If you are a young adult looking for a mentor, I am open to mentoring. I don't take everybody. So there is a process. But you can reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, or you can email me at christalcrockett@gmail.com and we can talk.